Once again, we are asked to find the domain of the given function, okay? And specifically, we're trying to find the implied domain, okay? So, as I said before, remember, the domain is the x values, all of the x values that you can plug in to the function, okay? And we're looking for restrictions. Any possible restrictions okay? And remember, that usually means some kind of way you divide by 0. That would be a restriction. Any number that causes that to happen would be a restriction. Or a negative under a square root. Any number that causes, any x value that causes a negative under the square root would be a restriction. Okay, and I don't have any square roots, but I do have a fraction, so I need to look at that. Okay, I have a fraction. And depending on what I plug in for x, I could end up with 1 over 0, right? If I plugged in 0 for x, right, if I solve this equation, right, I know that x cannot equal 0. Because if x equals 0, then I end up with this happening. Can't have that happening. Okay, so we're going to say x is a restriction. We cannot have that in there. So how do we represent that in our answer? Okay, x can be any number smaller than 0 or any number bigger than 0. It just can't be 0. Notice how that breaks up my domain into 2 sections, 2 intervals. Okay, I need to write them both out in the parentheses like we did on the previous example. So this is going to be negative infinity as my lowest point to 0 as my highest point, close parenthesis. That represents the first piece. The second piece starts at 0 and goes to infinity. 0 to infinity. And the correct way to write this out would be to put a U, a big U in between, because U represents the union. So the union of these 2 intervals represents my domain.